Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Asteroid City, starring Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Liev Schreiber, Hope Davis, Stephen Park, Rupert Friend, Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie, Tony Revolori, Jake Ryan, and Jeff Goldblum, directed by Wes Anderson. Welcome back to Wes Anderson, folks. And it's been a couple of times. This is the second time I've returned since Isle of Dogs, and I did his French Dispatch. So I was kind of excited for this movie, honestly, and I've been following this project quite closely. But is it as good as I thought it would be? Well, let's get into it and you'll see. We open with the newscast, and the host, played by Bryan Cranston, introduces our characters as it's a play of some kind, written by Conrad Earp, played by Edward Norton, writing a play that will be this movie, which is a good way to introduce our characters like its beginning, a play of some kind. And this feels quirky, and I expect quirky from director Wes Anderson. So I'm happy to be right in the movie at this point. We open the play in September 1955 with the family of war photographer Augie Steenbeck, played by Jason Schwartzman, and his son Woodrow, played by Jake Ryan, and daughters, let me see if I'm saying the names right, Andromeda, Pandora, and Cassiopeia. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Please forgive me. Entering in a small town as well as its diner and see their atom bomb as Augie gets the photo of it, and the town is called Asteroid City, where their car breaks down, and the mechanic, played by Matt Dillon, works on fixing it. And I swear to God, this guy looked like Josh Brolin, but it's not actually. It's Wes Anderson. I mean, not Wes Anderson. It's Matt Dillon. If Josh Brolin was ever in a Wes Anderson movie, in which I don't think he ever's been in one, well, while Augie calls his father-in-law, Stanley Zak, played by Tom Hanks, and asks him to pick up the kids, and Augie tells the kids their mother died 3 weeks ago, and these characters feel dysfunctional as a family. And I'm not too sure if I'm a fan of that, but I do like their performances. In comes the other characters, starting with actress Midge Campbell, played by Scarlett Johansson, her daughter Dinah, June, played by Ethan Hawke's daughter Maya Hawke, Montana, played by Rupert Friend, Sandy Borden, played by Hope Davis, as well as 12 kids, Roger Cho, played by Stephen Park, his son Ricky, J.J. Kellogg, played by Liev Schreiber, his son Clifford, and Shelley, played by Sophia Lillis, who was the young Beverly in the recent Stephen King movie It. And they are stuck with the motel manager, played by Steve Carell, as these are likable actors and characters in the right roles, as it is a fun movie to watch with a cast like this so far, as the quirkiness of the production design of Asteroid City, as it feels Wes Anderson, and I've had fun with it. And this movie, in my opinion, is pretty entertaining in the dark humor kind of way. The host introduced Shupert Green, played by Adrian Brody, and a man who I'm guessing was Augie gives Conrad some flavored ice cream. And the cinematography in this is great to look at. Augie takes a picture of Midge and Dinah without their permission, and she asks to print it out for her first. And I do like the chemistry between Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson, as it was nice to watch. Meanwhile, General Gibson, played by Jeffrey Wright, celebrated a meteor hitting a piece of their land and makes a speech, and we're briefly introduced to Dr. Hickenlooper, played by Tilda Swinton, and the acting in this is funny, as this is dark humor at best. Woodrow is invited to join Shelley and the other scout members to have lunch with each other, which looks quirky, but it's Wes Anderson being quirky at best. A kid named comes to Kim's coach on a train to deliver a message from Shupert, and Kim, also maybe played by Scarlett Johansson, and we're going back and forth between Asteroid City and the broadcast, but I like the scenes in Asteroid City better than the broadcast, because we don't know anybody in the broadcast scenes. Augie shows Midge the picture he took of her in the diner, and he shows her a monologue she memorized and show her full naked full on naked body. And why did that happen? As this is a PG-13 rated movie. But to be fair, it was originally an R-rated movie, but the MPA told West to tone it down, the full frontal nudity scene, so it got a PG-13 rating, which felt a tad bit bizarre. Stanley arrives to Asteroid City and reintroduces himself to Augie's three little girls while they buried their mother, who happens to be his daughter. And we move on to get together with everybody in town, looking at the ellipses from a box. And the audience sees a spaceship as well as everybody in town, and we see the alien, who's played by Jeff Goldblum, in a claymated design, taking the asteroid, which was hilarious, as I had to laugh at the design as it looked like a claymated fake, which I hate to say about a movie by Wes Anderson, but he has done good claymation movies before, like with the Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs. But they looked better than how this scene looked. We're back to the broadcast as the audience is introduced to Schubert, finally, as he signs the divorce papers with Polly, played by Hong Chow. And we see the host, which didn't make much sense because what did it have to do with this movie? Back to Asteroid City. General Gibson enters the room announcing people who are visiting to stay out for a while for quarantine reasons, while they're being interrogated by the police. And the children learn about the alien, and Montana enters to give a life lesson about the alien. And the movie is kind of turning into a sci-fi thing that other directors like Jordan Peele, M. Night Shyamalan, and Christopher Nolan did before with their sci-fi movies, which got to the point that they became kind of a mess. Augie and Midge talk about how Midge is not a good mother, and Stanley comes in, and this scene is with the dialogue is kind of falling flat, because the second half falls apart in my opinion. Stanley talks with Augie about how much Augie is alone, and Stanley wants to help despite he doesn't like it, while Augie was going to abandon the kids, and he decides not to after all. And not once did I get that from Jason Schwartzman's performance, but I get he's depressed, don't get me wrong, but I never got abandon my kids from his performance. We move on to the broadcast with Conrad and Salzburg Keitel, played by Willem Dafoe, meeting with the actors on the show, and Schubert comes in to talk about sleeping while on stage and their tester sleep, which was kind of weird. Asteroid City has an alien special carnival while Ricky is on trial for calling his friend, or maybe cousin, I couldn't tell you what that was, on the phone, while Montana and the kid they hung out with earlier in the film, named Dwight, made up a song about the alien, and they sing it with what's his name, Montana, which was amusing, while Augie and Midge practice lines for her script, and he eats a burnt sandwich, and by he I mean Augie, and brings up how Dinah saw them practicing lines while Dinah is in love with Woodrow, and brings up the alien looking at them like they're doomed. And he puts his hand on the toaster, which was an interesting choice. And the people talk about how long they'll be in Asteroid City and threaten a soldier, which is a bad idea. And another bad idea of Dr. Hickenlooper talking with Woodrow about contacting the alien, and again, bad idea. General Gibson says the visitors can go home the next day, and the alien brings back the asteroid and inventoried. Yeah, and people start fighting, which was ridiculous. Augie comes through the stage, and we go back to the broadcast and asking himself, as well as Schubert and Conrad, if he is doing the right thing. And he is going out for some fresh air and sees an actress on the other side who's played by Margot Robbie. And they talk about their scene, and this scene should have been in the editing room floor, as the second half of this is weirdly put together. The host takes it to the room with a line repeatedly that says, "You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep," which was pretentious. We move on to the epilogue, and everybody left Asteroid City except for Augie, Stanley, and the family, and they pray for the mother and eat at the diner, and leave town in a new car, and credits roll to a Run Runner dancing to the song Freight Train. And my eyes were starting we're staring at the Roadrunner, and the climax did fall apart despite I still like the movie, but I like the first half better than the second half at best. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 6.2 out of 10. I do like the quirkiness of Wes Anderson's production, as I had fun with it throughout the movie, and I do like how all-star the cast is, and right, they are in their roles, as the movie, in my opinion, is pretty entertaining in a dark humor way, but it falls apart by the second half. The cinematography is great to look at while the chemistry between Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson is nice to watch. But why did she go full frontal nudity for a PG-13 rated movie, as this was supposed to be an R-rated movie, but the MPAA told Wes to tone it down a bit, as these characters, or maybe Wes told him that he wanted it PG-13. I don't know which way it goes. As these characters are very likable, it could have been a little better if it were R-rated. The production design is great to look at, and I admire Wes Anderson for his vision, as he always has a great vision, but unfortunately the second half falls apart, as this is a recommendation that I'm saying go see it, but directors like Jordan Peele, M. Night Shyamalan, and Christopher Nolan, and now Wes Anderson make great movies, but their sci-fi isn't the greatest in my opinion. But it's a good movie, not a great movie whatsoever. So I'd like to thank you guys for coming back with me to Wes Anderson and his quirkiness. And until then, let's get quirky.